Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler.
To Henry. Quick snap. Breeze. Pass is incomplete. No flag for Tommy Lee Lewis.
Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Skipper going free to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on the New England.
The offseason continues to take massive leaps in bounds into being the greatest offseason in NFL history, and I do not think that's hyperbole at this point well, I mean, the cool thing is there's a lot of things changing, but at the same time, you know the saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The entire look of the league and rosters are changing, but the same ineptitude that's coming out of the Las Vegas Raiders is staying the same, but that might not go for the rest of the AFC West once you rank how successful their offseasons have been. And there's a team that that's been getting some really solid talent acquisition, but has been flying under the radar up until this point. Are they the most underrated team so far this offseason in terms of acquisitions? We'll go into that and more. Of course, I'm your host, Ross. I'm joined alongside by the Alex Kropp, and this is our NFL offseason Week 7 breakdown. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Alex, how are we feeling after some interesting, I think it's safe to say some interesting news coming out of the AFC West? Some more interesting news coming out of the AFC West.
Yeah, I feel like last season we had it's just been a really good run for the AFC and NFC West teams the last couple of years. There's been a lot of activity around those conferences or those divisions, and last year I felt like you had the NFC West that had a contender in every single team. Could we have 4 NFC West teams make the playoffs? Obviously, Seattle with the Russell Wilson injury kind of derailed that, but at the point there, we were talking about every single one of the NFC West teams being the favorite at one current point. And, that's almost what's kind of about to play out with the AFC West here is an argument for every single team in that in that division running away with the division. You could also make an argument for every single one of those teams being the worst team in that division. And especially with that Tyreek Hill trade, it brings everything back down to the equilibrium. And it's really, you have the flashy names with Justin Herbert, with Patrick Mahomes, with Russell Wilson, but the Raiders, they freaking made a trade for Devontae Adams, brought in Chandler Jones. Every single team made a splash, and it seems like the team that was coming into it, that was leading the division, was the team that didn't make the splash. But they have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid. So you have so many moving parts here. I think in terms of the off seasons, the Broncos pretty clearly, I think, won the off season because of just the magnitude of the addition they made. When you add a quarterback like that from Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater,
he's only a future Hall of Famer.
Is just ridiculous. So what everyone does, on the rest of the division, you still have that dramatic impact that Russell Wilson can make. So I think they won the offseason, but when you have a receiving core like the Las Vegas Raiders had with Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, and you had Derek Carr throwing them the ball, and then you add in arguably the best receiver in the NFL to that trio right there.
Yep.
I mean, the AFC West is not known for having great secondaries, besides the Broncos with PS2 and company, but it's going to be
Justin Simmons, the best safety in the league. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where you feel bad for a lot of those defensive coordinators in the AFC West, because there is not a team you're playing that is.
There's zero break. There's zero break. No. Man, if you want to take a look at that, if we have the spectrum of best divisions in the league, you go with the NFC least, and you got the AFC West, all right, and literally two polar opposites. But the funny thing is, in terms of talent, they're polar opposite, but in terms of competition, I'd say they're just about the same, because anyone could win that division. If you want to look at it that way.
Anyone can win that division. It's wide open. It really sets up like the NFC West did last year, where you have 4 teams that all have a case and all have, this thought going into it that, hey, we're the team to beat in this division. And, the team that hasn't done it and hasn't proven it, the Broncos and the Chargers. Those are the two teams that probably think that they have the most momentum going into next season.
I would think so.
They just so much activity has happened around this AFC West that those 6 games, those 6 division games that each team has to play, it is going to be a bloodbath. And the team that comes out of those 6 division games with a 4-2, 5-1 record is going to win the division.
Well, Alex, go ahead. Let's cut to the chase then with this division. Rank the teams in terms of the success of an offseason that they have had. Let's go from 4 to 1.
So 4, I'm going to say it's got to be the Chiefs. You lost one of the most explosive players, and you haven't replaced him yet. Now, could everything change?
No, they got MVS and Juju. That's essentially the same thing, right? And talk about an overpay for MVS. He should be sending a freaking fruit basket with a bunch of chocolate-covered strawberries with milk chocolate and white chocolate and all the fixing in there to the Jacksonville Jaguars because they have destroyed the wide receivers market value.
But
and
also just think of the fact that if you're Marcus Valdez-Scantling, not many people knew about you coming out of college. You get in the NFL, you still are a relatively unknown name. You have some notoriety because you got 3 names in there and you be called MVS, but you get Aaron Rodgers throwing you the football. One of the most gifted passers we have ever seen, and your specialty is the deep ball. And that guy throws one of the best deep balls we've ever seen. That's the guy you start out with. And then you get to go to Patrick Mahomes, who arguably has the only other better pure passer that's ever, walked the face of this earth, is now quarterback. It's like, how lucky can you get? Come deep.
That's pretty damn good. The only problem is the Chiefs, therefore, for you, I like them there as well because they're the only team in this division that has gotten worse this offseason. They are, I would say, if I had to grade them, I'll give them a B-.
That's too high.
C+?
I think they're a solid C right now. They have
okay,
and especially when you take into the context what other teams around them are doing. It's every single other team is adding firepower.
But it's not like the rest of the division has gotten better. Literally every team they're going against has gone dramatically better. At least one position.
Every single team made a giant superstar splash, except for the Chiefs, and they lost a giant superstar splash. So
yeah,
the calculus on that is, I think it's easy to say that they had the worst offseason, but you can also make the case that they're the favorites going into next year.
Which is ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Who's in number 3?
Number 3, I think this is just because it wasn't as sexy of a pickup, but the Chargers are 3 for me. They didn't do much to help the offense, and I think they still need help along the offensive line. They made a lot of good strides last year.
Were you saying Gerald Everett isn't a game changer?
No, I don't think Gerald Everett is a game changer. I still don't think they have. They've never, for a team that had some of the most iconic tight ends, just the Antonio Gates, and then when you had Antonio Gates and Hunter Henry in there at the same time, like Hunter Henry's a freaking really good tight end, and they had 2 of those guys in there at the same time, and they really have not had. They've been relying on the Jared Cooks, Donald Parhams of the world, and
just real quick, can we throw it back to the good old days where the Chargers had Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Antonio Gates?
And I'm going to throw another name out there. One of my favorite fantasy players ever, Keenan McCardell, had some of the best hands I'd ever seen.
I think that's an underrated fantasy name, dude, or any name in general.
Keenan McCardell was the original Keenan Allen. He basically plays the exact same role, that dynamic possession receiver.
What a team that was.
That was incredible.
It's a shame that they never won the title. Shout out to the 32nd overall special teams.
Yep, that was the Tom Brady special. This year every time.
Yeah, but about that.
That's the Chargers are my 3rd right now. Khalil Mack's an absolute monster. If you do 5 years ago when the Bears initially traded for him, I think you have a different outlook. But
love J.C. Jackson too.
Yeah, J.C. Jackson. I mean, I'm telling you, it's because they didn't make the moves on the offensive end. They didn't have the splashiest offseason, but they really improved that defense. And again, it's gonna go into a same situation as it normally is for the Chargers. If Derwin James and Joey Bosa can stay healthy, that defense is going to be good. And if they can't, it's going to be middle of the pack.
I think I'm not sure what your number 2 is. I have a feeling that our 2 and 3 is flopped. Because to me, I have the Raiders at number 3, and that's just because they made a huge move in Davante Adams. I feel like Chandler Jones and Max Crosby absolutely have the potential to be the best pass rushing duo in this division. But those are two, like don't get me wrong, those are 2 really solid moves. But compared to, I guess, the amount of talent that the Broncos and Chargers have gotten, and also the not only the amount of talent, but just the amount of players with talent that they brought in, I feel like that slightly gives them the edge. But really, between 2 and 3, between the Raiders and the Chargers, it's kind of a toss-up for me. But I'd probably lean the Raiders in number 3 instead.
Yeah, and you're spot on. I have the Raiders as number 2 in there. I think
love the number 1.
I think the biggest difference is the guys that the Chargers brought in. There's cases to be made that you're getting them at the back end of their careers or not their performance. It doesn't matter where J.C. Jackson came from, no matter how good he was. Any cornerback or defensive player that leaves the Patriots and they willingly don't sign them, it just gives me a red flag. That's
a good point. That's fair.
Did not happen with Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore was a stud when he came back. You're hoping that's the same thing that happened with J.C. Jackson, but we saw it with Dante Hightower. We saw it with Kyle Van Noy. We saw it with a lot of players over the years on this Bill Belichick team, and Khalil Mack's kind of in the same boat. Mm-hmm. He's a little past his prime. He's already made that big splashy move, and I think you just look at the compensation that it took to get Khalil Mack at 2 different points in their career. I think it just goes to show you the value that he has. And so I think when you bring in a guy like Davante Adams, that now when you make an addition to your offense that now completely changes what that defensive coordinator is going to game plan for, that to me is a massive impact, and that's what Davante Adams does. And you have Derek Carr connection. You've been talking about that for a while. It's going to be really exciting for those fans to see just add on top of Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller and just put Davante Adams in that offense and just see what happens.
We'll just see if the wide receiver curse of the Raiders stays true. As long as Davante Adams, Uber's literally everywhere, I think we should be okay. And also stay away from those cryo chambers, or at least wear your socks when you do those, all right?
Hunter Renfrow wasn't one of the best receivers in the league last year. He just continuously gets overlooked. Hunter
Renfrow on 3rd down is a lethal weapon.
Renfrow. I mean, it's literally an institution.
it's so damn good.
But Hunter Renfrow is a tall Wes Welker. How do you for a guy like Derek Carr?
But better.
Wes Welker, dude, he was really freaking good.
Well, also, you remember, I'm a Broncos fan when the Broncos had that wide receiver core, including Wes Welker. I love Wes Welker, but also I think Hunter Renfrow is going to be better than him, and that's saying a lot.
But that's the thing. Hunter Renfrow is young. He's not. Yeah. Not fully developed as a route runner.
If you saw his hairline, you wouldn't think that.
Yeah, I know. That's why he keeps the helmet on. It's good. I feel like
that's an old ass man.
Helmet even had a receding hairline, like the paint off towards the top of the face mask.
He might have the money. Now you should reach out to whoever LeBron got to replace his hair.
Needs his hairline guy.
Oh, man, that's about it. But, that leaves at number 1 for both of us. Shout out to the Denver Broncos. I think most importantly here, it's because they, for the first time since the Peyton Manning era, a long and tedious and horrible and suffering, and I don't even want to think about it anymore, era, the Broncos have their franchise quarterback, and it's a future Hall of Famer in Russell Wilson. To bring him in with Nate Hackett's offense. I mean, you look at what Nate Hackett said this week. Russell Wilson had frustrations of that they wouldn't really do what he wanted to do in Seattle. Where I think you could take 2 sides of that, because sometimes they had the whole let Russ cook thing, and obviously that didn't work out great, but also I don't think there's enough compromise in there. I love a new head coach who is perfect for Russell Wilson. For a new quarterback in there, they're going to do some great things. But also, guys like Randy Gregory, a very underrated free agent signing was bringing back Josie Jewell in the middle linebacker position. That outlaw was having a phenomenal season until he tore his pec. He's a great value acquisition, but also he's just a tackling machine in the middle of the field there. So I am excited for that. And they're making some decent moves at offensive line. So probably going to take a look at that position in the draft is my guess. But for George Patton, second offseason is a GM. That dude is amazing.
And I think one of the massive moves they made, not necessarily additions that they did this offseason, was the fact that they did not re-sign Melvin Gordon. That is a massive move to me because
at least not yet. There's still like
of it, but I think what they've really done is they've avoided re-signing him at a big cap number because I think that's
which is great
number. But if they do bring him back, I think they have to bring him back knowing that Javonte Williams is the lead dog in that back.
He's RB1. Javonte Williams is RB1.
Any more carries you can give Javonte Williams is an upgrade to that offense. And he is so freaking dynamic. If they can put any sort of if they can replicate some sort of a Dalton Risner on the other side and really establish a run blocking duo that Javonte can run behind for the next 3-4 years, that team is going to look a lot like those Seahawks teams that went to the Super Bowl with a really good running game. Russell just absolutely dicing teams up in the play action game. And then that receiving core is really, really good. And KJ Hamler coming back, that's essentially like adding in a new number 3 receiver that can take the top off of defense. And then you have 2 possession receivers underneath them. They have everything set up to be an elite offense. And the fact that you can, kind of gear more of the workload to Javonte Williams is completely bolstering that offense. So I'm a big fan of initially not re-signing Melvin Gordon, but even if they do, they haven't, put a bunch of resources into that backup.
By at least waiting this long, they've proved to him that he is not a priority.
Yes.
And that's why I like to hear, because if Pat Shurmur can have legitimate success with Javonte Williams, imagine what a Nate Hackett-led offense can do with Russell Wilson. All right, if you can just give the ball in his hand like 5 more times a game, whether it be out of the backfield, he's a great pass catcher too. But also he'll just run through a mother trucker. All right, and that's his MO.
and last point I'm going to make on this team is I think you hit on it a little bit with Nathaniel Hackett coming in as the head coach. There was always friction in the last 2 to 3 years with Russell Wilson and Coach Carroll. Coach Carroll is one of the coaches that, he's a big personality. He's chewing the gum on the sidelines. He's there, but he's got all that energy. And he thinks of himself as the face of the Seahawks. Russell Wilson sees himself as the face of the Seahawks. So you always have a flashing of personalities and egos. Pete Carroll wants to run the football, play defense. Russ wants to let Russ cook or whatever he wants.
Well, I guess, does he really want to run the football? Only when it doesn't matter the most.
Well, just from
it's obligatory.
From a thought process kind of way. Overall feel he wants to run the ball.
I know what you mean.
We've seen that clearly. His propensity to run the ball, even when Russell Wilson thinks he's having his best years ever. So I think having Nathaniel Hackett coming in, not having an ego as a head coach and being able to kind of attach himself to Russell Wilson, who's done it before, I think this is looking similar to, ironically, where Hackett came from. LaFleur came in, didn't have an ego, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best players that we've ever seen in this league. Let him what he wants to do, just collect the credit on the back end. And I think if Hackett lets Russ control a lot of where this offensive direction goes, they have the pieces on there that they can, establish something kind of backers of the West there.
And I think that's going to happen because if you just take a look at the press conference that Hackett and Russell Wilson had when Wilson was officially Bronco, the beginning of the press conference was just Nate Hackett going, "Russell Wilson, man, this is awesome." What more, bro? I love Nate Hackett, through the interview process, he's really grown on me as a head coach. He just looks like a football guy. And who else do you want to lead your team than a football guy,
It worked out for you the last time.
Shut up. New era.
If you want a football guy, put a longtime defensive coordinator with a fanny pack on the sideline for 2.5 years. See how that works.
maybe we should stop hiring defensive coordinators as head coaches. Just a thought. No offense, guys, but it hasn't worked out great, so maybe we'll move away from that. But speaking about coaching hirings in the AFC West, let's talk about the new look of the Las Vegas Raiders, because there's some interesting stuff going on there, and some stuff where it's kind of butting heads with each other with some of these news stories coming out of Las Vegas. So, of course, Josh McDaniels is the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. We saw how it worked out last time he was in the AFC West, so hopefully the Raiders see... Apparently, the Raiders see something new in him that's actually going to lead to legitimate success in not drafting Tim Tebow in the first round. And they're bringing Devontae Adams. They're making some good. Like we just went over, they've been having a really solid offseason. But some of the news coming out on Monday is straight from the mouth of Josh McDaniels. The Raiders are, quote, trying to build around, end quote, Derek Carr, but when it comes to extension talks for Derek Carr, quote, Derek's going to have to make decisions about what's best for him, and we have to try to do what's right for the team. There will be a sweet spot in there, hopefully, for everybody. So, what it seems to be is that they're trying to build around Derek Carr, but also they're not sure if Derek Carr is going to resign or to extend his contract with the Raiders. That's kind of a conundrum there. What do you see going on here, Alex?
Maybe I'm wearing a different colored lens today, but I see this as a complete leverage play by the Las Vegas Raiders. You just brought in Derek Carr's best friend. You just signed him to one of the richest contracts for 5 years in NFL history. It was the richest contract for a wide receiver in NFL history. There's a chance there. And they got rid of Marcus Mariota, who they brought in last year to almost keep Derek Carr pushed up from below. And they're just posturing right now because they don't think Derek Carr is a $42 million quarterback, which he probably thinks he is. I mean, you see these Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes type deals. Derek Carr is not those guys. He's going to want to be paid in that same ballpark. So I think they are accomplishing two things with that comment. They are, A, backing their guy. They're putting confidence around Derek Carr that, hey, we're building all this around you. But B, also saying, hey, we're not moving off of our position. This is still going to be a decision where you have to decide if you want to be a Raider or if you want to make the most money possible. So they're almost giving themselves an out and a public forum to say, hey, we're not going to just be pushed over and give you whatever you want. So I think this is a very smart move, but I don't think this indicates that the Raiders are moving off or even have a chance that Derek Carr is going to leave.
That's a fantastic point right there. It's weird because I guess it's hard to look at this. You've taken a good look. If this was like the old Raiders, the Mike Mayock era, especially the Oakland Raiders, this definitely just looks like a big old gaffe, and it's business as usual with the Raiders. But new head coach, new GM, maybe they're actually going to think things through. I guess the only thing they can do better now is do ownership, but we all know that the dude with the bowl haircut that has a face of Freddy Krueger does, it's not great. And
here's also something to think about, and it's, I think, a calculus that we're seeing more and more from NFL teams is that there's two situations that have really yielded success in the past, excluding Tom Brady. It's having a rookie quarterback on a very, very small deal like the Patrick Mahomes, and having that small cap hit from a quarterback while he's still an elite player and just building around him with a ton of valuable pieces and a lot of your cap going to the skill position, to the defense, to the offensive line. Or it's the go in and, the hired gun, the Matt Stafford, the Tom Brady's of the world. So even if you have this situation in Las Vegas where you put Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, you start to build up that defense with Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. And if you build the offensive line, which I think they're going to do in the draft with whatever picks they have left, even if Derek Carr does not re-sign there, you have an infrastructure in Las Vegas where if you put a young quarterback or one of those veteran quarterbacks that is not going to be for max money but is in there and ready to go make a championship run, you have the people around them to succeed in either one of those situations. So I think regardless of what Derek Carr does, they're going to be set up for success for whatever future quarterback they do end up bringing in.
That's a great point right there. And right now, the way it sits contract-wise with Derek Carr is that he's going into the final year of his contract. He will be an unrestricted free agent in 2023, barring that he signs an extension before the season or during the season. So, with that being said, what do you perceive the value of Derek Carr to be right now? Because I could definitely see him being... he might not have the talent for it necessarily, but with his importance and the situation he's in with the team, I could easily see him making $35 million a year.
Yeah, I think that's his number. I think Destiny is going to be taking 2 to 3 year deals between $30 and $35 million, kind of like the Kirk Cousins. But
what can he do to break 40? Is there a chance this season that he's able to elevate himself to a $40 million contract?
So it's from what we've seen in the past, it is really, really hard to be a pure pocket passer and make that over that $40 million threshold. The guys are the Deshaun Watsons, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, these guys that have Dak Prescott with the dual threat ability and that have, both the big arm and the ability to run the ball and be an athlete. And I think for Derek Carr to get to that point, he's got to have Aaron Rodgers type numbers in the passing game, and I just don't know if he has that in him. He's been really efficient with the ball. I think his turnover margin and his fumble margin has gone in a really, really positive direction, but I just don't think he has, at least now. I mean, we haven't seen him in this yet, but up to this point, he's not been able to put up those gaudy stats, the 5,000 passing yards, the 45 touchdowns, these big numbers to warrant him getting that big contract. But he is, operating like the Kirk Cousins. Honestly, that model is not a horrible model to be on if you're a quarterback. You're just you have the ability to make 30 to 35 million, and that you're not going to lose your team games, but you're not at that point where you can rise the team above a team like the Chiefs or a team like the Bills in the AFC. And so I think he's just kind of cemented in that 30 to 35 range unless he can put up the 5,000 yards and 40 touchdown passes like an Aaron Rodgers.
And one of the things going against him as well is that he's a really solid quarterback, but he also does have a small issue when it comes to turning the ball over. He was the only quarterback last year to have at least one interception and one fumble 3 games in a row. So that's one part of his game that he's going to have to clean up. Luckily, it would help if he has better offensive line in front of him, better receiving threats, and that's exactly what it looks like we're going to have here. So Derek Carr he's absolutely in the position where he can make that $40 million a year, but as of right now, he's going to have to do a lot. He's going to have to do a lot.
I don't think he ever gets to that point unless the salary cap gets to a point where it's.
That's not a bad thing necessarily to not be a $40 million a year quarterback.
No, because he's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not in that top tier, but he's just underneath. He's in that Ryan Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo type area. And if you're the top of that threshold, we've seen it before. You can go to the Super Bowl with these kind of teams, and Jimmy Garoppolo has shown you. I think his peak is where Matt Stafford was last year. If he can get to that point, then he's a $40 million quarterback. But that's I think there's a firepower gap that he's lacking right now.
I think that's super fair to say. And then speaking about firepower, let's talk about one of the teams this year that has added said firepower, but maybe it's gone a bit under the radar. And the team, so we're going to give our picks for the most underrated offseason so far this season. I like it, Baze. There's a few teams that you could choose from here that have really made a splash, but I think the team I'm going to go with, Alex, is one that we've mentioned already when it comes to, maybe a Tyreek Hill kind of situation. And for me, it's going to be the Miami Dolphins, because if you want to take a look first at that Tyreek Hill trade, it was I would say it's a fair trade, but the Dolphins didn't have to give up any of next year's first overall draft or first round draft pick. So I think that's a big win for them. They're trying to go all in with Tua. So this is a big step in the right direction, but also Terran Armstead at tackle position is huge. Raheem Mostert, great pickup. Chase Edmonds, solid pickup. Cedric Wilson, great pickup here. And it's not like they're making, besides Tyreek Hill, it's none of these names are like, the Devontae Adams, the Russell Wilsons, the big names, but they're all some really solid names. They're making this Dolphins team a really well-rounded team, and they have real chance to compete for in the AFC East here.
You know, the reason I'm upset right now is because you stole mine, and I think that is the freaking answer, because the Dolphins, you know, kind of similar to the offseason last year, is they're just lacking that receiving talent that really can lift Tua over the top. Jalen.
Well, it was not bad. Gesicki is essentially a wide receiver.
Yeah. So they were getting to that point last year, and that was their big issue, was they had kind of a possession offense. They didn't have a big down-the-play guy. Was that Tua not being able to throw the ball down the field, or was that just their offense and the way they built it up? You know, Waddle, for as good as a season he had, his average depth of target was like something like 2-3 yards down the field last year. It was something like really, really close to the line of scrimmage. So they still lacking that big deep threat. So bringing in Tyreek, I think, just opens that offense completely. And, you know, when Tua's been good in college, he's always had that take the top off the defense kind of element to his offense. And I think it just opens up.
Man, when you say that, it just reminds me of that overtime pass against, was it Oklahoma?
Georgia in the
Georgia, that's right.
And was it in overtime? And
I think it was the overtime one.
It was overtime, and Georgia kicked the field goal first, and he took a horrible sack to almost take them out of field goal range on second down. And on third down, he just launched one, and that was what a moment. And so it's weird, though, because we know Tua has it in him, but he just never has been comfortable enough to do it in the NFL. And so I think Tyreek, where hands down, he's been the best deep threat in the last 3 to 4 years. There's not even a question. I don't care who else you put in front of me. He is the best deep threat. He is the one that makes secondaries the most uncomfortable. So I love what Miami did. I also really like them bringing in Chase Edmonds. I think having a quick scat back like that, where check down Tua loves to do that. And so if you give a yard after catch guy like Chase Edmonds in the backfield, I think that adds a dynamic they haven't had there in a while. So, but go for it.
With the Tyreek Hill trade, who do you think I got a couple of questions coming off of that we're going to talk about. First one is going to be, who do you think it has a more positive impact on? Is it on Tua or is it on Jalen Waddle?
I think it's on Tua, 100%. I think Waddle still is going to be able to do the things that he does well in this offense. Tyreek Hill, where, as Tyreek moves all around the field, but he is an outside receiver. He doesn't play outside. He runs those routes the best. And Gesicki likes to run that inside of the field. And Waddle, I think, is just going to be afforded the leverage to move wherever he wants. But really for Tua, I think it just gives him that ability to just open the field. And if you have ever played football, if you've ever played on the offensive side, when you have a guy that teams have to just put attention to and have to divert resources to making sure that person doesn't beat us on the field, everyone else's job gets easier. And when everyone else just gets a little more space, they get a little more free releases. Tyreek, the hitch starts to open up for him because the DB's playing 12 yards off him and he can run a 6-yard route and get an easy completion. So I think just everything gets opened up for him, and he is now in a position where he's got everything on the table for him to succeed. If he doesn't succeed, he knows that the Dolphins, can make a firm judgment that this is not the guy for the job. So I think it's all on Tua. This is the best setup for him. But, I think this has immensely helped him for this year.
That's perfect, because that will lead us into my second question. And I think I already know your answer here. But before we get into that question, I just want to put out there, I want to reiterate a point that I was making on Twitter, that a lot of people actually, I had more support for this take than I was expecting. And that was that Creed Humphrey is more important to Patrick Mahomes' offensive success than Tyreek Hill ever was.
I mean, I think you're cross here. I like the point you're making, but for a guy that can throw the ball 70 yards down the field, Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes were an absolute cheat code. I think the combination of those two, or Travis Kelce, or anything more than him and Creed Humphrey, but I think Creed Humphrey holds the key to Patrick Mahomes' long-term success.
Let's just talk about Creed Humphrey being a rookie, but also still being the best at his position. I don't think Tyreek Hill was the best at his position.
I just think for Patrick Mahomes, what he likes to do with the football, having Tyreek Hill was just so unfair to everyone else in the league. So unfair.
Yeah.
When you can have – so here's the one point I'll make is I don't remember who it was, but when Tyreek Hill had that first half where he went off for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, no matter what an offensive lineman does, he does not have the ability to win a game by himself. And won that game by himself, and he always had that ability. So as good as Creed Humphrey,
fair counterpoint.
If you replace Tyreek Hill with someone, an average, just say like an average replacement for that player, I think you see a more dramatic impact replacing Tyreek Hill than you do with Creed Humphrey.
Fair enough. I'm right there with it. I guess my counterpoint to your counterpoint would be the Super Bowl where they played the Bucks. But also, it's kind of infuriating watching Patrick Mahomes sometimes as an offensive lineman because he'll have a solid pocket. The tackles might get beat, but he has plenty of space up front because the guards and center are doing the job. So he'll step up in the pocket, but then he'll run out of the pocket.
But also,
But also, Patrick Mahomes is fantastic. He's the best quarterback when it comes to throwing from outside the pocket. So it's kind of...
I'll raise your Super Bowl against the with the Super Bowl against the Niners and why Tyreek Hill is so freaking impressive. That third down play on the left sideline is that won them the Super Bowl. Again, that single-handedly won them the Super Bowl. Whereas if you had Creed Humphrey, I don't know if that would have been able to patch the holes that the Chiefs had against the Bucs that night.
I think this is fun. I love a good hot take, man. And honestly, also, in any way I could shill for the offensive line, I'm going to do it.
You made really, really good points.
Thank you. And you made really good points. But the only problem is, counterpoint to the counterpoint is Emmanuel Sanders and Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
I know, that's a low blow. I'm just being a dick at that point. I'm not even arguing with you.
What do you want me to do? Yeah. Should not have overthrown him. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. All right.
That's what I'm here for. But the question is, the question we were getting to before I cap out the show is who is facing, and like I said, I think we got your answer for this, but still some good points being made for either guy. On the back of Tyreek Hill's trade,
yeah, go ahead.
Which quarterback is facing the most pressure to succeed? Is it Patrick Mahomes being able to prove that he can succeed without Tyreek Hill, without the biggest deep threat in the league? Or is it Tua having the pieces around him needing to succeed now? Who has more pressure?
More pressure is clearly on Tua, I think, because his job's on the line, and Patrick is going to be a god as long as he has a right arm. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Tua because, Brian Flores is now attached to not being on the same side as Tua and not being now in the ether. So however this shakes out, you can point at, was Brian Flores right or was Brian Flores wrong? And so having like a very he's an impactful person in the media right now, especially with everything going on. So having that back and forth and being attached to the other side of that, I think is something where it's going to bring a lot of attention to you. So that just adds to the pressure of Tua. And if he does not perform this year, he's clearly going to be replaced. And if not by the end of the year, by the middle of the year. So pressure's on for Tua. But, one team I really did want to highlight as an underrated offseason, someone that they did not make a ton of moves, but similar to the Chiefs after the Bucs Super Bowl loss, the Cincinnati Bengals really, really addressed their offensive line, and adding Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, and Lyle Collins to that depleted offensive line from last year.
I agree. I think that's a fantastic point you make there. I just kind of assumed that and who knows, they still might go to the draft and just draft offensive lineman. I still think that it wouldn't hurt, certainly, because, really, if you take a look at that team, what's the weakness there? And what lost in the Super Bowl? Offensive line. So, but this is it's just really simple, man. This is really simple GMing right here. Oh, guys, where's our biggest problem? Oh, it's a horrible offensive line. All right, you want to know what we're going to do this year? We're going to sign offensive linemen.
All of them. Just sign all the offensive linemen. I mean, have we made the point enough that the offensive line is important to winning in the NFL? Has that been established at all?
I don't think so. I think it still goes overlooked because offensive line is underrated.
It goes overlooked every single year, but every single year, the reason the team in the Super Bowl lost was the offensive line. At least the last 2 years.
Just trying to look, man. I also look at Super Bowl 50, the one I know a lot about. What lost the Panthers that game is that they could not protect Cam Newton, but also that's kind of a tall task to ask, but they could.
Can you imagine pairing Von Miller with Randy Gregory? that could.
That's stupid.
That could happen.
I guess I'm okay with them not signing Von Miller because, oh my gosh, did he get overpaid? But also, he deserves it.
But it just for one moment, did you picture it? Just for a little bit.
Alex, I've been this whole offseason before Von Miller signed with the Bills. I was like, oh, him and Randy Gregory. Oh, him back with maybe a Nick Chubb. Ooh, him and Chandler Jones. Ooh.
Here's the thing, though, is even though he signed with the Bills, clearly his allegiances can be changed mid-year. So when the Broncos are making their Super Bowl run, why not tag along Von Miller to that?
Trade for him?
Of course.
It would not be bad, man.
Can you imagine reinvesting the assets you got from trading Von Miller last year to bringing Von Miller back this next for Super Bowl run?
Whew. Oh, wouldn't that be stupid? That's the whole, George Patton's currently fleecing your GMs right now. Come to life, but man, there is a lot of fun stuff when it comes to the Dolphins, when it comes to the Bengals. Some fan bases have a lot to be excited about. If you're any team in the AFC West, sure, it's going to be horrible with those division games, but also any non-division team they play, it's probably going to be a good time. So,
can you imagine? There's going to be so many national TV games that come out of the AFC West this year, and every single one of them is going to be.
You mean Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football? If they even think about putting one of these divisional games on Thursday Night Football, I will be pissed.
Yeah,
that's a crime.
You know it's going to happen though. At some point, it's going to. You can picture the Chiefs playing on Thursday night. It's going to happen.
Shut up, Alex. I hate it. I hate it. I don't want to think about it.
It's going to infringe on your.
I am excited to. If I take off my bias here, if I take off my Broncos fanship, I'm excited to watch the Raiders and the Chargers.
The Raiders are going to be fun offense. Can you that offense was fun last year? They bring back.
I'm looking forward to that pass rush, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Pass rush and there's a lot of. Can you just think about the pass rushing? Some of the pass rushing duos you have in the AFC West. The Chiefs. You got
Gregory and Chubb.
You got Frank Clark and. 95, Chris Harris. When you go to LA, you got Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. You go to the Raiders, you have Max Crosby, Chandler Jones, and then you have Randy Gregory up in Denver. Every single team has
and Nick Chubb. Thank you.
Pass rusher. Every single team. And terrific offensive lines for any team.
Talk about trial by fire for new head coach Nate Hackett.
Have fun.
Well, we're going to find out if he can indeed hack it. My one per show. There's my horrible pun. You guys, it was almost over, but we cannot end it until I meet my quota.
The Broncos pun, too.
Oh, I'm so good at my job. But thank you guys so much for tuning into our NFL offseason Week 7 breakdown. Of course, there's a lot of great stuff going down in the AFC West, but a lot of really interesting stuff, especially when it comes to contract situation as well. What team do you think has been the most underrated team so far this offseason? Drop us a note down in the comments or hit us up over on our socials on Twitter or Instagram. Best way to find us is at everything is thefourthandlong.com. Or for NFL specific stuff, that's thefourthlong.com/NFL. But Alex, your thoughts on the Tyreek Hill trade in one word or phrase?
Speed kills.
Speed kills, ladies and gentlemen, especially if you're in Las Vegas. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you in the next one.
Come on, man. You can